All right, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody to our virtual series, Charger Chats. I'm Michelle Farmer, the Assistant Director in the Alumni Office, and we're glad that you joined us today. Today's chat is with Senior Coordinator for the UAH Office of Career Services, Candace Phillips. Candace received her Bachelor's in Business Administration from Auburn and her Master's in Management from UAH. She's also been working for UAH for 10 years this fall, so congratulations, Candace. And Candace, she'll be sharing updates about her and how her team are supporting students, alumni, and other members of the UH community during this time. So just to let you know, we'll let Candace speak first. She'll do her presentation, and we will allow time at the end for Q&A. So if you want to use the chat function, you can drop your questions in the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the session. And Candace, thank you for joining us. I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. I am very excited to be here today. So like Michelle said, I've been with the university for about 10 years. I've spent all 10 of those years in career services at UAH, so I've seen a lot of changes. I might have even been there when some of you were going to school there. If I was not there though, I'm going to go through and kind of talk a little bit about who we are. Depending on when you graduated, it might have looked, the Career Center might have looked a little bit different. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview of what we do right now, how our office serves students, how we serve alumni, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. I don't plan to keep you guys here for any crazy amount of time, so we'll kind of go through the content, but I look forward to talking to you, and I'm very excited for any questions that you might have. So let's start with what we do. So, you know, I always kind of start these conversations with, again, depending on when you graduate, the Career Center looked very different. It's evolved a whole lot over the time that UAH has been in existence. And so what we do now is kind of a comprehensive career center. It's everything from on-campus employment to co-ops, internships, the development piece, the career counseling piece with that exploratory type career planning style model. And so a long time ago, I think that the co-op office was separate. Those have since moved all together, so you'll find that there. So the job search strategies and the career planning, resume assistance, mock interviews, I'll talk to you a little bit about how that works in a minute in terms of what platform we use, if you want assistance with that, how that setup works. We also, if you're a new alum, you might know this already. We started a mentoring program about 2 years ago. That's evolved a little bit too. We have experiential learning, and you were probably very familiar with the co-op and internship program at UAH, but now we also offer externships. Again, don't worry, I'll talk all about that here in a few minutes. We do networking events, so if nothing else, you might have known us for the career fair. We bring a lot of employers on campus. We host information sessions, you know, different style networking events, things like that. And we also do a lot of workshops. Probably one that would be most interesting to you guys would be our salary negotiation workshop, which is certified by the AAUW. So with that being said, I normally start by talking about the things that really we want to engage alumni in. And so if you are familiar with our Mentor or Charger program, or our month of externships program, those are things that even though we're dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic that's kind of hit the country, hit the world really, those things are we're still going to offer those services. You're not going to see any disruption for any of those. If you're unfamiliar with those programs, I'll start a little bit by talking about the Mentor or Charger program. That's a program that we started, I believe it really launched for the first time. I think we had like a small launch in the fall of 2017, and then kicked off a lot bigger by the fall of 18, but it's a formal mentoring program with alumni, corporate partners. We don't just keep this with alumni, but we're targeting first-year students. We allow any students to sign up, so if a freshman through a senior are interested, you know, they can apply. There's a fairly rigorous application process, and we try to make sure that the right students are, you know, what they're wanting, their goals, and they really align with the alumni and the corporate partners that are signing up with this. But alumni can sign up right now to be a mentor. There's a link there. The commitment for it is the 5 times, like I said, between September and December. We do an orientation for that, so that if you're kind of not sure what that's supposed to look like or what your role is going to be, we kind of walk you through that. But we really want it to be up to the student and the alumni mentor to set what's going to work best for them. What does this mentorship look like to them? So we give a broad range of guidelines, but nothing too strict that you couldn't make that work yourself. Some people stretch out the meetings and, they really make them, some people set them out to where it's like, hey, I'd like to talk to you every other week or every week. Some people say, hey, let's check in once a month. Again, that's what you make it look like. The cool thing about this program is that we know that our alumni are not necessarily just in the Huntsville community. And so when this program first launched, we kind of had the component to where this could be virtual meetings. And the very first year that we had it, we had alumni mentors all the way in China that were reaching back out and still mentoring students in the Huntsville community. So with this program for the fall, the only difference that you're going to see is that we're not going to have the students and the mentors meet together in person. We're just going to ask that all of them are virtual meetings. But again, the great thing about that is that we were already equipped to do that. We're already prepared to train people on what that looks like. And so you won't really see a disruption for that. If you are interested, I shortened it as much as I could, but I will say there's the link right there. If you're like, that is just too much to type in there, you can go to the career services page under the hire and recruit tab. You'll see everything about these programs there, and you can actually just click it from that website. Moving on to the month of externships, again, fancy word for job shadowing. So depending on when you graduated, this may or may not have been something that you saw our office offering, but there's a definite need for it. You guys go into UAH, you know that one of the main things that we see is that people choose UAH because they're excited about their career. They're excited about the opportunity to work. They're ready to jump right in. And you might have experienced yourself that as a freshman, maybe even as a sophomore, you weren't quite ready for a co-op or for an internship. But this is a great way for them to kind of get an idea of what jobs look like in their field of study. So we really encourage first-year students to sign up for this program. It's the job shadowing looks a lot of different ways. Some employers sign up to host students for, an hour a day for a week. Some say, I'll take students half days every other Tuesday. We host this program in March, the month of March. And so we reach out to employers, alumni, whoever want to host students around January or so. And we ask them if they'd be willing to host. And if they'd be willing to host, hey, what major would you want to host? What type of students are you looking for? Who would this be a good fit for? And then we have the students apply. We make pairings and matches based on interests, based on schedules, based on a lot of different things. That program right now is not something that we're having alumni sign up to host students for next year, but we will in January. And so as everything with COVID-19 evolves and we're learning more about it and we're learning more what the landscape's going to look like at that time, we will be sure to update that on our website. But if you think that you'd be interested in hosting a student for shadowing, we would love to have you welcome that student to your place of employment, and you can reach back out to us on that. Again, all the information, the contact information is on our website, also under that hire and recruit tab. Again, so Charger Path. We've had Charger Path since about 2009. The software provider that we've used has changed a few times over the years, so it might look a little bit different. But this is basically the monster.com, indeed.com that's exclusive to UAH. So it's where we post all on-campus jobs, off-campus jobs, co-ops, internships, and full-time degree-related positions for alumni. So this affects you in two different ways. One, if you're looking for a job, you still have access to this. Now, if you've not logged into the portal in a while, what you'll need to do is you'll need to go and create an account under the alumni portal, and that's if you're a job seeker. You can go, once you've gone through, we do have to vet that you actually graduated from UAH, so give us a couple of days to run through and actually make sure that we pull your transcript and things like that, because we want to keep this exclusive so that these opportunities stay within the UAH community. But then from there, we'll go through, you can go and peruse jobs, you can make appointments with us. When I talked about that resume review or interview assistance or any of that stuff, all of that component functions through Charger Path. So that's how you connect with us on those levels. Again, this doesn't really change because we still have the opportunity to serve you virtually, and all of our appointments have moved to virtual formats. So we're still able to serve you in that way. The other thing is that if you're an employer and you have the opportunity to hire students or hire alumni and you're interested in that, there is an employer login, and you can go on and actually, if your employer's already created an account, you can access through that way, or you can create one for your employer if it does not already exist. We use a platform called Handshake, and the great thing about Handshake is that it connects you also to a number of other schools as well. So if you wanted to recruit, at UAH and, maybe for some different things at Calhoun, you could connect with both of them if they both had that same platform. I shouldn't have said Calhoun because they technically don't have that platform, but there's over 1,000 schools in the country that do have that. So it might make it easy for you too, if you're recruiting and you're hiring and you want to help employ more people. That's an option for you. So 2 different functions with that, as an alumni and also as an employer. If you have questions about that, again, on our website, it kind of walks you through that whole process. But whenever I get to the very end, I'll leave some contact information for that as well. I did want to tell you guys to save the date because we talked about those networking events and things that we have going on. What's going to be happening for the fall career fair is that we are planning a virtual career fair. And so although we had a date set that was, we usually shoot for early September, something along those lines, we're recognizing right now that the employers, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what their recruiting structure is going to be like. And since we know that we're going to plan for a virtual fair, we know that we also have to get the student body ready. We have to get our alumni ready. We have to educate all the employers on what this platform is going to look like. But we're not alone with that. All the other schools that we're talking to, everyone's planning on this virtual model for the fall. So a date will be announced within the next month. I expect that it's going to be late September, maybe potentially sometime early October. It will be later than usual. But again, that's just to make sure that we can maximize our relationships with our employers and also serve you guys and our students as well as possible. For that mentoring program, like I said, the registration is ongoing right now. Minley and Brittany, who work in our office, they make those pairings. They start those around early August when we have students start registering, and all of the pairings are made by September 10th. And so you'll know all of that by that point, but if you're interested, we would love to have you apply. The externship program, again, slated for March 2021. That's still, nothing's really right now changing at that point, but if we're looking at virtual externships at that point, we will go that route. We will not be canceling any of these programs. Everything will continue as usual. It just may be in a virtual platform, but we will open registration for that in early January. I know that was probably super quick. So bear with me. I talk fast. I drink a lot of caffeine at lunch. We want you guys to connect with us. If you haven't, we try to stay pretty diligent on our social media platforms. So we're posting a lot, on our Instagram and Facebook, but also, we'll post things, especially if you're an employer and you have the ability to recruit. We'll post things on our LinkedIn page to engage you that way. We do have a YouTube channel. If you have potentially maybe a student now who's also going to UAH and you want to kind of stay up on some of the videos that we have for them, I think that we also might have our MAC orientation video on there. We're working on that platform, and we're probably going to be beefing up our YouTube channel this year because we realize that a lot of our engagement is going to come through videos. So just kind of, if you can, I'd love for you to screenshot that. That's our phone number and our main email address. Any questions that maybe we don't get a chance to answer here today, we are happy to help you and happy to serve you. Just feel free to reach out to us in either one of those ways. And I'll go ahead and kind of step back and see if there's any questions at this point.
Thank you, Candace. I appreciate your time, and all this information has been very valuable. So we'll definitely open up time for questions. Like Candace said, if you have any, please just drop them in the chat function of Zoom, and we will answer them to the best of our abilities. The first question we have is, are alumni able to sign up for the workshops that you host, or is that restricted to students? And I think what that was in reference at the beginning, I know you talked about the salary negotiation workshops and those types of events that you have.
That is a great question. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yes, alumni absolutely are. The way that you'll do that, we post all of the workshops through Charger Path. So what you'll see through Charger Path, there's an events tab. You can go through there and see the different types of workshops that we offer, when we're going to offer them. All that you have to go in and do is RSVP, and then from there you'll see a link that will connect you. It's a pretty easy process.
Okay, awesome. All right, our next question is just some clarity on the MAC program, but it says, just to make sure I understand correctly, MAC and externships are for current students only, not alums. So is that correct? Or
Yes.
okay.
So what we look to engage the alums in from that standpoint is that we're hoping that the alumni actually want to serve as the mentors. And I should say that a lot of times with the mentoring program, since we're targeting first year students, when you look at the retention piece, if you don't keep them that first year, a lot of times people don't go on to graduate. And so we would hate to see someone who is a part of that UAH family who, for whatever reason, they just did not connect while they were there in that first year, and then they lost motivation to go on and finish that degree. We're hoping to connect with that population. We're hoping that, a lot of times it's not the high level things that they're needing help with. It's maybe they're a first generation college student and they've never had to have a budget before, or they've never had to, be responsible for 3 meals a day, or, being responsible for getting up and going to class. A lot of times it's small things like that. On the opposite end, sometimes when we have really high achieving students, and sometimes they're upperclassmen, they've already done a co-op or an internship, they're just kind of a shining star, but they want that extra little piece of, networking. So a lot of times they'll sign up to get a mentor. And so depending on the applications that we get from the mentors, what type of student they're trying to help, we try to make sure that we pair appropriately, but we're hoping that the alums want to be the mentors and that they want to be the ones to host the students for externships.
Okay, I think that answers the question. I guess if an alum was interested in an intern or a co-op, that if they logged into Charger Path, they'd be able to sort through that and see what would apply to somebody who had already graduated, correct? Or is
so
that
co-ops and internships? Yeah, so co-ops and internships are degree related experiential learning. And so theoretically, whenever employers post that, that's for someone who is still working on their education. Now, sometimes you'll see the exception to that. You'll have the government level internships, and they'll call their recent grads interns. And that tends to be about the only exception. But what the alums can go in and do is look at those full-time degree related positions that are definitely available for them.
Okay, perfect. All right. That person said thank you. That answers their question. So next
You're welcome. Happy to help.
Yes. Joined late, so sorry if you already answered this, but did you say alumni can get help on their resume? I'm an alum, but also work part-time at UAH and would like to find something full-time. So where's the best place to go look for full-time jobs within UAH and outside UAH? So I guess resume help, and then I guess the job search portion.
So 2 things. If you're an alumni, you have 2 different options. You can actually upload your resume to Charger Path, and you'll, each one of those are reviewed and given feedback. However, for alumni, I typically say you're not going to be coming from the standpoint of a traditional, say, sophomore student who doesn't have a whole lot of experience. And so their resume reviews look a little different. I think if it's something that you've, been in the field for a while, you've got a couple of years of experience under your belt, you need more than just like, the entry level help with that, I would say make an appointment with one of the coordinators to actually go through that resume. What's helpful for the resume reviews is if you can show them what types of jobs you're looking at, so that they can look to see, are you actually including in your resume the types of skills and the types of skills needed for that particular position. And if you're not including those things, then you're probably not getting interviews, or there's other things that we can do to help you out there. So I would say I would encourage probably the alumni to actually consider the function of the virtual resume review, just to kind of go through some of those things. The other question was, what was the second part of it?
The best
was about jobs
for full-time jobs within UAH, outside of UAH. So.
Gotcha. So outside of UAH, we do have Charger Path. There are jobs posted there, but we always tell people don't let that be the only place that you look. You really need to make sure that your LinkedIn account is updated. You're utilizing it properly. Utilize other services or other platforms like Indeed.com that I mentioned. Any of those sites. A lot of times too, employers will post directly to their page. So Cummings Research Park, say you're in the Huntsville area, there's a list of all the employers in Cummings Research Park. Don't be afraid to go directly to their website and see what types of careers that they have posted. It can be a little bit tedious, but depending on what you're looking at, you can probably narrow it down pretty good. For jobs at UAH, we do not post those. Those are actually posted by HR. So you'd have to go to the Human Resources webpage at UAH and look there and peruse to see what they have available.
Perfect. That answers the question very well. All right, another question is, what are some of the positives that you've seen come out of the MAC program? Can you share any of those success stories that would motivate us to join the MAC program?
That's a great question. So I will tell you now that we actually have a career coordinator in our office who worked for us as a student worker for about 4 years. And she was one of the first people whenever we piloted the program to sign up to get a mentor, because whenever this program kind of started, it started with the Student Alumni Association, and she was the president at the time. She signed up for a mentor, and we were able to connect her with someone who was on the alumni board, and that's been something that she references whenever she counsels students all the time about how much that really helped her, just having somebody to talk to, having somebody to go to. Even though she had friends, even though she had parents, it was a completely different perspective. We found out after the fact that they actually happened to be in the same sorority and didn't even realize it. They had a lot more in common throughout a lot of the different things. And so it really did make a difference to her. And that's, again, something that she references. She leads a lot of our workshops, and she talks about that a lot. We also have another alumni who signs up, who asks to host students she mentors students a lot. She brings students in for externships. And one of the students that she's mentored, she brought in for an externship. She brought them back the next go around for an externship, encouraged the student to do this. And the student in her review actually said that she's one of the main reasons that she stayed in school. So again, I can't stress enough that a lot of times the students who sign up for this, they recognize how much they really need this. And a lot of times this is not something that they have access to in their life, because a lot of times there's not anybody at home that they can talk to. There's not friends that they can relate to that have kind of been there and walked that. And so you really are giving back to this student and how much this is going to change and shape them over the course of the next 20 and 30 years in their career. It really is impactful.
That's awesome. Definitely brings value and meaning. So. All right. Another question is, do you have any suggestions for how alumni can still develop their careers during this time?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the great things that we've seen is that there's so many webinars happening right now. There are so many people who are willing to do free forms of professional development, virtual professional development that they would not have historically done for free of charge. And so my team, for example, multiple webinars every single week, and just trying to capitalize on, what resources are out there that maybe we didn't realize were out there, what other people are doing that we might not have realized. So I would say, for one, look at using this time for professional development purposes. Look at, connecting with others. There's a lot of different online meetups, online networking things that you can do. Again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tout LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, if your profile's not up to date, that's a virtual platform where people are still very eager to hire. And so just from our standpoint, we're connected to a lot of recruiters on our own pages, and I can go on there any point in time and see, people are saying, hey, don't get discouraged. We're still hiring. We're still looking at this. Human resources partners that we see, they're doing their orientations online. They're like, it looks different than it normally does, but we're still hiring. Don't forget about us. And so don't get discouraged. Focus on your resume, focus on your online presence, focus on getting more skills or professional development that you wouldn't have historically done. And don't use this as downtime. Use this as a way to get creative and innovative about your future.
That's great advice. And yes, I've seen so many emails and posts about webinars. There's so much opportunity just to log into those, or even if you can't attend at that time, if you sign up for it, most of the time they'll send you the recording so you can just watch it at your leisure. But yeah.
For sure.
All right. And the last question, I think this is more so about the MAC and MO programs that they're wondering if there's any like gap areas or industries that you could use some more support or engagement from.
Again, another fantastic question. The funny thing about those programs is that every year it changes. I think that the first year, we probably had a gap in business, and that was a really tough one to fill. And then after that, we had an abundance of business. We've had gaps in nursing before where we just could not get those pre-health students or students interested in healthcare in general. We just couldn't find things for them. And that the ebbs and flows with different years. So we really don't know until they start signing up what the need is going to be. And so I will say that especially the externship program has evolved. And so for anybody who was involved with that early on, you probably saw that we used to recruit externship hosts in the fall semester. And then we kind of learned a quick lesson that until the students register or apply for externships, we actually don't know what we need. So it didn't really make sense for us to get all these externship hosts in there when we may or may not get students in those fields. And so, we've had, we let the students come in and, like, for example, I think this last year we struggled with chemical engineering hosts. That was the hot one. I think the year before that it was biology and a lot of healthcare. And like I said, going back to business, it's across the board. A lot of times what we'll do now, though, is we'll go through, and if we have a gap, we try to go back and find people that we're connected to on LinkedIn, or, we work with the Alumni Association. We use them a lot to say, hey, we have a bunch of students in this field. Do you guys happen to have any connections or anybody who would be willing to host these students? And, a lot of times alumni will come back and say, well, I can't host them because I have a clearance, or they can't come out here because of this clearance. There's ways around that. And one of the options, and I should have said this earlier, is that we even welcome the externship to be offsite, maybe at a neutral site, just maybe even a lunch meeting that's, hour or two that says, this is what a day in the life of, an electrical engineer about 10 years into his field in this type of industry looks like. This is what it looks like for me. I have a friend, though, who is also an electrical engineer, but in a different industry. And this is kind of what it looks like for him. And it varies. And so we tend to look at it every year based off what the student demand is.
Good deal. Definitely a lot of great questions today. And it looks like we've got them all, so we answered them all. So thank you, Candace. I appreciate you sharing your expertise and being able to answer those questions and just share more about what Career Services is doing right now. So,
I am happy to help. Just please remember that nothing is changing other than seeing it from a virtual standpoint. Everything that existed before will continue to exist in the future, and we're excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all again for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate that you spent time with us today during your lunch hour. We will be sending the recording to everybody who registered, as well as the survey. So if you could fill that out and just let us know what you think, that would be wonderful. And our next Charger Chat is going to be Thursday, June 4th with alumnus and psychiatrist Thomas Sargent. And the registration link will be ready early next week on our social media and the website. We'll be chatting with Thomas about our mental health and how to stay positive during this time. So, well, thank you again, Candace, and we appreciate you all joining us. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and go Chargers.